You know that feeling, right? You're 3 hours deep into a social media scroll, watching videos about things you didn't even know existed. But then, the second you open a textbook, you're suddenly thirsty, you're hungry, and you have this overwhelming urge to go organize your socks. If that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. Okay, let's get into this because what if I told you that you could use the very same tricks that make social media so addictive to actually make yourself want to study?
And this right here is the modern dilemma. On one hand, you've got this magnetic, effortless pull towards your phone. Hours just poof, they vanish. On the other hand, you've got this invisible brick wall you hit the moment you try to do something productive. It feels like a willpower battle every single time. And that contrast forces us to ask a really important question.
So what's going on here? Is this a personal failure? Are we all just undisciplined? Or is there something else at play? Well, the truth is, the game is a little rigged. Our brains are literally being pitted against technology that has been designed by experts to grab and hold our attention.
To understand why our phones win this fight so easily, we have to look at our brain's ancient programming. It's kind of like we're running old survival software from the jungle in a world full of digital notifications. And, well, the two just aren't really compatible.
And here's the absolute key. Our ancient brain is hardwired for instant gratification. It wants the reward right now. Food, safety, social connection. Social media delivers that perfectly. Every single swipe, every like, every notification is a tiny, instant little hit of stimulation. Studying, though? Well, that offers reward months, maybe even years down the line. So for our primal brain, it's not even a contest. The immediate, easy win is going to triumph almost every single time.
And this brings us to dopamine. Now, we often call it the pleasure chemical, but it's actually way more accurate to think of it as the brain's go-again signal. It's less about feeling good and more about the motivation to repeat an action. Think of it like a little sales agent inside your head whispering, "Hey, that was kind of interesting. Let's do it again." You never know what you'll find next.
And this is where the addictive loop really locks in. Social media apps are absolute masters of something called variable rewards. You swipe and you have no idea what's coming next. It could be boring, it could be funny, or it could be the most amazing thing you've ever seen. That unpredictability, that lottery of maybe, is what keeps our dopamine system firing and has us saying, just one more. Compare that to a textbook, right? Page 2 predictably follows page 1. It's organized, sure, but for dopamine, it's terrible.
Okay, so we know the game is rigged against us. But what if we could rig it back in our favor? What if we could actually steal these powerful psychological tricks from social media and use them for our own goals? Well, this is the brain heist. We're going to learn how to make our brains want to study.
All right, here's our plan of attack. It's broken down into 4 simple but really powerful steps. First, we're going to trick the brain just to get it in the door. Second, we'll reframe our work into winnable games. Third, we'll give our brain the quick feedback it craves. And fourth, we'll use a super powerful psychological bias to stay consistent. Let's jump into step 1.
So, the biggest enemy of productivity. It's not the work itself. It's the friction of just starting. That simple act of getting off the couch and over to the desk can feel massive. So the first trick is to make the initial step so incredibly tiny, so ridiculously small, that your brain doesn't even bother to put up a fight.
Think about that negotiation going on in your head. When you tell yourself, "I've got to study for 3 hours," your brain's alarm system just goes nuts. It's screaming, "No way. That sounds awful. Let's do it tomorrow." But if you promise to just read one sentence or just open the file, the task is too small to even trigger that anxiety. It's kind of like a toddler who throws a fit about taking a bath, but 5 minutes later is happily splashing away. Once you're in, momentum usually takes over.
You know, social media works in these quick, satisfying little loops. Scroll, see something cool, react, repeat. We can do the exact same thing with studying. Instead of facing this giant, endless task like work on my history paper, we need to break it down into short, defined, and, this is the most important part, winnable rounds. So instead of that vague goal, you create specific ones like these. See how each one has a clear finish line? Your brain hates ambiguity and tasks that feel endless, but it absolutely loves the feeling of completion. Finishing one of these small rounds gives you a tiny little hit of accomplishment, a small win. And winning, even on a small scale, is addictive. It makes you want to go for another round.
Okay, imagine playing a video game with no score, no sound effects, no health bar. You'd quit in like 5 minutes, right? Well, traditional studying often feels exactly like that. You put in all this effort, but you don't see an immediate result. It feels like you're just shouting into a void. To keep our brains engaged, we need to create evidence that what we're doing is actually working.
And this is exactly how you do it. These aren't just study techniques, they're feedback machines. After you read a page, close the book and try to explain the main idea out loud. Use some flashcards, do a quick 5-question quiz. This gives your brain what it's desperate for, fast, practical evidence. Oh, hey, I remembered that. Or, oops, I totally missed that point. That's feedback the brain can actually feel.
All right, but what about those days, the ones where motivation is just at zero? You're tired, you're stressed, you just don't feel like it. This is where we bring in our most powerful weapon, something called loss aversion. We are psychologically wired to feel the pain of losing something way more intensely than the pleasure of gaining something.
This number, it represents way more than just consistency. It represents an investment. Once you have a streak going and you can track it with check marks on a calendar or an app, whatever, a whole new kind of motivation kicks in. You're not just studying to learn anymore, you're studying to not break the chain.
So here's the crucial part. On a bad day, the thought of that number dropping all the way back to zero becomes a more powerful motivator than the desire to learn ever could be. You might not have the energy for a full hour, but you can probably manage 10 minutes just to keep that streak alive. And you know what? On those bad days, just keeping the streak alive is the win.
Now, these mental tricks are really powerful, but let's be real. Willpower is not enough. And here's why. Our brains don't choose what's best for us, they choose what's easiest. So the final piece of the puzzle is to master your environment so that focus becomes the path of least resistance.
The strategy here is super simple, and it's got 2 parts. First, you add friction to your distractions. Put your phone in another room. Log out of social media. Use a site blocker. Just make it a hassle to get to them. Second, you remove friction from your good habits. Lay out your books the night before. Have your notes already open on your laptop. Basically, you rig your space so that focusing is the default easy option.
And finally, you put the whole thing on autopilot with a ritual. Your brain loves cues. When the same sequence of actions happens right before you study, your brain starts to connect that pattern with focus. It could be as simple as sitting at the same desk, turning on the same lamp, and putting on the same playlist. The ritual removes that whole decision of should I start now, and it transforms studying from a battle into a mode you can just drop into.
So after all these techniques and brain hacks, it all comes down to a simple, really fundamental choice. Your attention, your focus, your dopamine. It's the most valuable currency you have. And every single day, you're spending it somewhere.
Think about it. When you're just endlessly scrolling, every second of your attention is building value for someone else's platform. It's making them profit. But when you redirect that same energy, that same dopamine drive, into learning a new skill or mastering a subject, you are investing it directly back into yourself.
And that's the ultimate takeaway here. That dopamine is going to flow somewhere no matter what. The only real question is, are you going to let it be harvested to build someone else's empire? Or are you going to channel it to build your own skills, your own future, and ultimately your own freedom? The choice is yours.